Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and very good morning. Shall we start our session today with Kitab Al-Fatihah? First of all, I would like to welcome Prof. Dr. Mariana Osman and all my colleagues. Okay, today, our session today, we will have on topic persuasive language for grant proposal presentations. This is this topic is very highly related with Prof. Dr. Mariana because of her experience. She has been in RMC for a few years, and then she have secured so many grants. So as well today, she will share with us based on her experience, what will be best and how would be best for us to write a persuasive grant proposal to ensure that our what we call as examiner for the certain grants can be persuaded by our proposal. So without further delay, I would like to hand over this session to you. Over to you, Prof.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good morning. Okay, today I think my talk on persuasive language for grant is actually mostly related to application for example, contract research or sponsored research. Because I think in relation to grants, for national grants, for example, FRGS, TRGS, and we have LRGS, mostly is quite, what we say, quite specific. And it already have the guidelines. And also, however, when we are talking about contract research, or private research grant, it is mostly related to topics that the funder want. So I think I'll share my slide. Hopefully that we can have an interactive discussion. I think for today's session, it's actually a discussion. And if you have any question, you can just stop me and then we can have Q&A directly with regard to the topic. Okay. Okay, sorry, sekejap. Dah push ke bawah. My name is Mariana Mohamed Osman. I'm a lecturer from Department of Urban Regional Planning from Kulliyyah of Architecture and Environmental Design. I was the Deputy Director for Grant Management unit under RMC for, I think, for 2 years before, but this year, I've not continued my post as a Deputy Director GIU, but has been replaced by Prof. Hazlin. I think I was invited. I was invited. To continue my post, but I think with the current workload of having a few grants, so I've declined the offer for the Deputy Director. But of course, I think for grant proposal, mostly it is quite a tedious work. I think we have to prepare a lot of topic and proposal, and we also have to be very diligent, I think. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. This introduction, I think. In terms of grant, I think most of us already know. We already have tried or submitted proposals. And of course, it is a very complicated process. My topic today mostly related to private or sponsored research. I think based on my experience, having sponsored research or private grant is much more demanding as compared to completing a grant under FRGS. Talking about securing grant, usually FRGS would be quite difficult based on my experience as compared to private or sponsored grant. I mean, these are my personal experience. But completing, completing the sponsored or private research grant would be much more tedious and difficult because we have funder, and usually funder would want to have to verify or to evaluate our our output. So in terms of my personal experience, in terms of difficulty of completing grant, it would be mostly on sponsored and private research grant. Okay. In terms of in terms of writing proposals, usually we have to have a few steps that we have to think about before we prepare the proposal. Okay, I think so. These are some of pointers that I would like to share. Hopefully, we can have an open discussion. I think I have here together with me my team. Dr. Shafi'i is one of my colleagues that usually work with me on our sponsored research grant. Okay, next slide. Okay. These are 6 steps to get sponsored or contract or even foundation grants. Okay, first we have to know where to find the opportunity. So these are very important, I think. Second step is to be clear about why basically we are applying. Of course, usually when we are talking about grant, we can consider this like free money. But we also need to be accountable because talking about grant, usually we do not have to pay back. So these are the different as compared, for example, consultancy. Consultancy, we can also refer as a contract research. When we registered under RMC, sometimes certain type of consultancy can also be considered as sponsored or contract research actually. So it's all depend how basically your funder provide you the award letter. Okay. Third, talking about know the type of support available. 4, know the specific. 5 is follow the guideline. I think follow the guidelines, the term of reference, the TOR is very important. And number 6, to get expert advice or collaboration. This is also very important, I think. Okay. The first step, know where to find the opportunity. Or basically, we have to start very early. Okay. Usually, if, for example, we are talking about grants, private grants or foundation grants, usually they will open quite consistent throughout the year. For example, once a year in terms of deadline, if, for example, they are opening early years, so usually they will have that early years call for a proposal. Okay. Of course, we know that seeking grant is very competitive because I think it's usually open to all. I mean, other university, other researcher will also apply for this grant. And of course, it is very difficult for first timer. I think within our participant, we have more than 30 participants, I mean, researcher, lecturers. Some of you may be very senior, and some of you are basically new lecturers. So, of course, I think in terms of experience, a senior lecturer do have this advantage in terms of getting grant actually. So working together with your, I think for junior lecturer, working together with your senior is very important. Start locating as many grant funding sources as possible. Basically, I've in the last slide, I've included a few examples, or what we can source of funding. We can try under federal ministry and also agency and also private funder. Talking about ministry, there are also ministry that offer grants actually. Other than, for example, MOSTI, there are also what we say, for example, Yayasan Innovative. We have Yayasan Hasanah offering. There are also international and international funder giving grants. Later on, I will explain about how basically we can have opportunity or try to apply for international grant. Second one, talking about submission, a well-written proposal is necessary because it is a very competitive environment in getting grants, because grant is very limited. Then, sorry. The numbers, the opportunity of getting grants, usually in terms of percentage, we can say around 30, or maximum 30%. Of application. Even for example, FRGS this year, the number of, the successful rate is around 30%. The same thing as in private grants, actually. So it is quite competitive, and also the quality of a proposal can be varied. For us, I think as a lecturer and also as researcher, it is part of our KPI. So we also have to work, strategically in getting certain grants. Okay. I think parts what makes grant writing so challenging is that different funder want to have a different, what we can say, scope or different objective within a proposal. So if, for example, you are submitting for what we can say, Hasanah Foundation, it will be a different as compared to, for example, you are submitting to Yayasan Innovative. So knowing the scope is very important, I think. The essence of the funder want to see in the grant is actually quite the same. In terms of content, they would want to know basically the scope. They already, for funder, usually they will already identify topics that what they want. So these are what is important, okay? And also talking about the competitive, the quality of the submission that we submitted, the quality of the proposal. So these are also quite important. I think in terms of languages, we also have to be very thorough, okay? And sometimes our researcher would want to write write proposal what we want to submit, but sometimes we do not really read the, what we can say, the TOR, the term of reference that the funder wants. So I think that is one of the things that that can be a problem among our researcher. In evaluating research proposal, I've evaluated, during in my term as Deputy Director in RMC, I would say that certain researchers tend to submit same proposal, throughout using the same proposal, submitting to a different agency, submitting to to a different grant. So this also can be a problem. Some our researchers submit, for example, their proposal of FRGS to other funder as well. So and sometimes the proposal is quite the same. There is no, for example, change in the in the proposal. So it's 100%, what we can say, 100% duplicating, I mean, resubmitting the proposal. So that is also an issue actually. We have to be very thorough in terms of what we are submitting actually. Okay. I think you can stop me if you have any question. Kadang-kadang it's quite difficult when when there is no two-way session among the participants. Okay. Second, be clear about your reason for applying. Do your research. This is very important. Important to be clear on the purpose of your seeking fund. Of course, we know that we want the fund itself. So, but we also have to have this a few questions that need to be answered when we are preparing the proposal. What are your long-term goal, program goal, for example? How you are going to utilize the money? So these are very specific actually, and also funder would want to know. For example, in assessing AIG, IAG Islamic, the international grant that RMC declared. In evaluating the proposal, there are a few, for example, researchers who are not very specific in terms of the utilization of the money. So these are also very important. For example, even though when we are submitting private grant, the vote is quite different as compared to what we are submitting in FRGS. But the FRGS component or the vote can be used actually in preparing our proposal of other private grants in utilizing, for example, vote 21, vote payment of RA, vote 29, for example. We do not use the vote, the numbers of vote, but the content, for example, data collection, even, for example, in my submission, for example, FGD will have a cost. If, for example, you are doing questionnaire survey, per questionnaire survey is also, you can include some cost. For example, enumerator, you can have some cost. It all depends how basically your funder would want it to be very specific, because they will have their TOR, they will have their guideline in terms of how basically you can use the fund itself. Okay. What are your funding needs? Sometimes, okay, when we look at certain term of reference or call for proposal, there will have some limitation. For example, 100,000 or 50,000, and most of our researchers would want to try to maximize that particular amount. That should not be. We actually will, in terms of evaluating, for example, I've involved a lot of a process of evaluation. Usually we will understand, when we look in detail, we will know that this researcher just want to fulfill the maximum of the grant. That should not be. Of course, if, for example, it's just 10,000, of course, you can apply up to 10,000. But in detail of the component, usually, as evaluator of grant, we will look in detail as well. If, for example, 10,000, 5,000, usually we don't really mind, you apply to a maximum. But if it's the grant is 100,000, for example, the evaluator will look in detail about how you're going to spend the money. So, and that would also be, a marking ranges. Certain evaluation, for example, they will have this marking sheet, how basically the evaluator will evaluate. For example, they will put content, it's like 50%. Members of the research group, for example, 20%. Technicality, in terms of methodology, usually they will put a higher marks. So this component is also very important in preparing our proposal. How will you achieve success with your proposed project? Of course, that will be methodology. Methodology usually will have quite a high marks in evaluation process. I think because a certain call for proposal do have these marking ranges. You have to look at the marking ranges, how basically if they provide that marking assessment sheet, for example, how the proposal is going to be evaluated. It's quite the same as when we apply for what we can say consultancy. You can say you can assume that application for contract research, for example, is quite the same as consultancy. I've involved in, for example, got a grant in Span, 50,000. I think last time we got like 3 grant with my team, and I would say one, getting the grant from Span is quite difficult. Completing the grant is another level, you know, because for example in Spain they will have like three level of evaluation on the progress of your grant, for example. And for example, they will have your inception, progress 1, progress 2, and final report, for example. And during this evaluation of approving your stages of that particular submission, they will have a review panel, and sometimes this review panel is very not to say detail is one thing, but sometimes cumbersome. They tend to question a lot of things. So talking about contract research, usually there will be evaluation and also submission of progress, and this progress level usually need to be approved by a panel. Okay, how competent are you in bringing your proposed project into success? So this also one of the elements. Talking about competency, how competent are you? Usually your members, okay, your team members is very important. So try to include, I think in the latest slide, try to include junior, senior lecturers, and also practitioner. These are also very important. When we are talking about, for example, grant of FRGS, you can just include lecturers. MOHI grant, usually you can just, FRGS, you can just include lecturers among your main and, co-researchers. But for contract research, based on my experience, it is essential actually to include colleagues from the industry. This is very important actually, because one thing, sometimes there is also an understanding or perception saying that academic only know theories. These are a normal thing amongst, private funder. They will say that we don't want the work to be very academic. So therefore, one element that is very important to include your colleague, practitioner outside as part of your members team. Your professional colleague, outside, the practitioner does not need to write the paper, but they can give advice. I would say this is very important. At the moment, for example, a lot of my grant or contract research or even consultancy, I have practitioner. For example, I'm in a built environment, we have architects, we have also, for example, surveyor outside, and also for example, I have my good friend Dr. Suraya from Kazana Research Institute as advisor. Their names usually will also assist in getting a better marks in the assessment, but actually their comments in our work is very important. I would say that that is one of the main G's. Okay, 3. Know the type of support available. Okay, you need to identify the funder that can fund your project. Search the field. Know the field sources. For example, I already mentioned, you have federal, state, and local. For example, government agency. Previously, I got a grant under IDR, Institute Darul Rizwan. It's actually a think tank under Perak government. You can also apply under Darul Ihsan. I think that is a Selangor think tank. State of Selangor think tank, they are quite rigorous in doing research. and you actually can approach them in trying to get funding. Other than that, we can also try local government, actually submitting or trying to get grants under local government or sponsored research. Usually we do have to have colleague or friends working, based on my experience, working with for example, in the agency. These are also sometimes private funding can also be quite quite selective and targeted into certain, to individuals. So knowing your connection is also very important actually. When you're applying grant for yayasan, usually it can be open. But for private funding, sometimes connection is also quite important lah, actually. Private business and corporation, these are also, for example, can be included as part of contract research and also private research. At the moment, I've got mostly my grant under private research or companies actually asking me or asking me to assist on certain topic that they would want, and sometimes they also have funder. You can be considered like, for example, sub-consultant for certain topic, for example. Yayasan, foundation or yayasan, these are open. It open throughout the years actually. If you are very, rajin, you can actually try to find in the internet. There are a lot of funding on yayasan. Okay, when you are applying, or basically there are also stages in certain funder that would want to have evaluation or interview. You are called for an interview, for example. These are very important stage where if your topic are being selected, means that you are shortlisted. It's actually 50% consider you can get the grant. Means that your proposal are of their interest, but they would want to know your expertise, your knowledge, and usually your methodology. So these are actually, if you are called for an interview for the grant, so you can confidence that actually you are 50% nearly getting that grant actually. But of course, in presenting the grant, your proposal, that is also very important. Bring, if for example you are shortlisted, you have to bring your colleague that can also assist you. Try not to, for example, sometimes they give your time, the time limit. But if you are the team leader, you have to present within that particular time. Go for your objective. Methodology would be very important, and the output. But also try to encourage or give opportunity for your co-researcher also to answer or to add up certain points when you are presenting. So that is also very important. Okay. Okay. Number 4, know the specific. Follow the instruction. These are very important. I think a lot of our researcher, even for example, we call for last time internal grant. It's actually external grant. That Jamalullah Chair. Okay, Jamalullah Chair is actually an external grant given by Majlis Agama Islam Perlis. I think we call it, under Jamalullah Chair, which is not actually internal grant. Tapi RMC will have this call of this particular Jamalullah Chair. I'm also one of the evaluator together. I think dalam panel tu they are the CEO of Majlis Agama Islam Perlis, Ustaz Nazim, Mufti Perlis, Datuk Mazhar is also one of the evaluator. Me, lepas tu the chair of Jamulullah chair, Prof Abu Lais, and also Dr. Azrul. Just an example. Usually, we receive, for example, last time nearly more than 20 applications for that Jamalullah. Jamalullah chair is actually an external grant, but Majlis Agama Islam Perlis give funding to URA around 2 million for grant allocation for 5 years. So at the moment, I think in terms of utilization of that particular grant, only less than 200,000 just being utilized. We already awarded, if I'm not mistaken, around 15 applicant, successful applicant. But issue talking about that, for example, that grant, a lot of our researchers tend to submit what they want. They did not read the guideline. Okay, so that is one of the issue. For example, find out as much as possible the rules of the grant that you are applying. Read and understand the rules and procedure of the application. Okay, take note on the important details. Deadline of the submission. Another thing, during my tenure as deputy director, we have this. A lot of our researchers tend to apply for extension. Of course, we tend to do last minute works, but still try to get the deadline. This is very important. Okay, application procedure and also the grant focus. These are the three things basically that firstly that you already know. If, for example, you have the deadlines within end of the month, at least the mid of the month, you already have your draft, because you also can give among your co-researcher and also your mentor, for them to vet it through and to comment your proposal. So these are also okay. Application procedure. So they have the topic, they have the for example, the requirement. They already mentioned, for example, last time we have this grant IIUM, UITM dengan University Malaysia Pahang, UMP, for example. They already mentioned, for example, the criteria. Need to have a minimum of 3 lecturers, and then you have to have, for example, 1 from UITM, 1 from URA, 1 from University UMP, for example. They all do application that basically only have, we receive only a few application only have their name, for example. They do not include, for example, lecturer from UITM or lecturer from UMP. So this will be outright technical knockout. So these are some of the things that you need to be very careful. Okay, follow the guideline. Make sure that you meet the criteria and the requirement of the funder. Most of them reject proposal that go against their terms. So this will be the first thing that they will look at. And even, for example, me as evaluator, I will look at the guideline. Even in assessing FRGF, first thing, the head cluster will mention. First, look at the technicality. Technical knockout, automatically, even though your proposal is very good, they will not evaluate. Even, for example, they include, for example, a maximum of 50,000. You put like 51,000, automatically it can be a technical knockout. So this is very important. You should comply with their preferred pages length, font size, for example. Pages length is also very important. Sometimes we tend to write a lot of things, but what we should think about is what we're going to tell the research, the funder, not what we want to write. So this is very important. Supporting document and other information. Actually, the proposal, following the guideline would be the first test. Okay, when evaluator would want to judge your proposal. Okay, they need to know that you are interested in it and you're going to follow the instructions. So these are very important, I think. Everybody can see the slide, kan? Okay. Wait. Okay. Okay. Get expert advice. These are very important. Collaborate with other researchers to establish prior success. Create your research team. At the moment, I do have research team. I'm not doing alone. I have Dr. Shafi'i. I have in KAED, I have Dr. Suzilawati, Dr. Faris is actually my core team. All my research proposal will have their names within, and their proposal will have my name as co-researcher. You have to have your team. At the moment, mentor-mentee is also quite an important factors actually. At the moment, the university do have mentor-mentee. For example, I do have Dr. Izawati is one of my my team in terms of mentor-mentee, and usually I will inform among in my WhatsApp group of mentor-mentee. For example, if there is an opportunity for papers, journal papers, for example, I will inform them. Basically, you can submit, you know, because at the moment I'm also assisting. Editor, technical editor for one journal. So usually I will inform within my team and also my mentor-mentee team. Okay, you can submit to me, for example, paper, if you want to have, you know, these are certain things that we can also give opportunity among our colleagues. So these are very important. If you want to increase, yeah, Waalaikumsalam.
I have a question. My name is Khairul from KLM. Okay, yes, I would like to ask about the mentor-mentee program because I am not aware of the such program. Is it kuliah level or university level? If how do I join this kind of mentor-mentee? For research grant? Thank you.
At the moment, mentor-mentee, I think in my kuliah ada mentor-mentee. I think it is actually at university level. A lot it is at university level, but the mentor-mentee usually is being done at the kuliah level. For example, in KAED, they previously were asked our lecturers to identify or to select who are the mentor that they want. In KAED, for example, they have this professor to be the mentor, and then the selection is done by the mentee, by the lecturers. So at the moment, for example, in KAED we have like 5 professors. So it's a voluntary, not to say voluntary, all lecturers in KAED, for example, have to select one mentor. So, and then the selection is done by the mentee. So if, for example, your kuliah do not have, you can ask, for example, you got KLM kan, Dr. Azrul. You can ask your head of research, for example, for this mentor-mentee. But I think last time during audit KAED, they did ask basically how the program of mentor-mentee is being undertaken. So this is also one of the. If, for example, you are interested to have a mentor from other kuliah, you can also approach directly the lecturers, because I think mentor-mentee is very important. It's actually senior lecturer will assist and guide, for example, your junior lecturers, not really juniors. Usually associate professor and assistant professor will have will work together with a professor or the mentor in even preparing proposal. Is all up to you how basically you want to work within that particular arrangement. At the moment, for example, for my team, I have WhatsApp group, and usually I will inform on paper publication. For example, if there is opportunity for grant, usually I will inform. At the moment, I think in terms of grant in IIUM, because I'm also one of the panel for Jamalullah Chair. I will say try to get apply for Jamalullah Chair. But the thing for Jamalullah Chair, for example, it is very focused. they want the satu, you need to understand macam Jamalul Laica is actually using duit zakat fund. So when we are evaluating, we will want to see what are the impact to asnaf. This is very important, and it needs to be not on research tapi project based, program based. So there will be the guideline. You have to read the guideline, for example. Tapi untuk to answer your question about mentor-mentee, at the moment, KAED have, IT engineering have. So if, for example, KLM do not have, then you can ask for them to get this. I mean, to propose the program. I know there are certain kuliah that do not, very limited your punya professor. You can also ask, for example, to join from other kuliah. For example, KLM, if you are in tourism, you can also approach in KAED, because KAED is also, I mean, involved in, for example, in a lot on tourism study, for example. But if you are in languages, then you can also approach language, for example, in Gombak campus. So I think that answer your question. Okay. Basically, you can collaborate. One thing, actually, you can help ask the help from other researcher. One thing we can say, other researcher in your kuliah means that your colleague, but you can also ask from other faculty. This is also very important, because when they comment, it's actually assisting you. We have to think about positively. Sometimes, for example, when we are assessing FRGS, our researchers sometimes quite I mean, complain that the evaluator are very, you know, very what, detail, and bukan detail lah, kadang-kadang macam carrot sikit macam tu. You know, but one thing, usually in evaluating the proposal, usually there will be criteria. Try to fulfill the comments by the evaluator. That is also very important. Have your application reviewed by your advisor, mentor, and other researcher who may have experience with particular grant, and even from other graduate students. If, for example, you have graduate PhD, you know, you have your master student, you can also work together with them in preparing proposal. For example, a lot of my proposal, I work together with my research assistant, research officer. Usually preliminary, we have a meeting in preparing proposal. Usually what we, in my team, I will call for a meeting. Dr. Shafi'i will know. We'll call for a meeting. I will trash out, okay, these are the TOR. These are the term of reference and all the call for grant, for example. And then basically we look in detail, okay, which topic that we want. For example, they have various topics, so we will select on which topic that we want. And then usually if you have your research officer or research assistant, you can ask them to prepare first. But you have to have the, for example, the framework. For example, what you want in terms of the introduction, the problem statement, scope and objective, you know. And then if you are the one that prepare, so you have to be detailed. And usually you, I mean, in my team, usually we will have a meeting first before we call, we prepare the proposal. So that is very important. That's why, as I already mentioned, work together as a team. We cannot, I mean, we cannot be successful if we are working alone. So these are the most important thing, working together with your colleague. So what else? I think discussing idea with colleague about your study may enhance your project. Reach out and get personal. So I think ni yang penting sekali sebenarnya when you get your TOR ataupun the call for a grant. Okay, try to get feedback from scholar outside of your study area. Sekejap for example, in KAED, I also have a colleague or researcher from engineering, from law and economic, that usually I will ask their opinion. on a certain topic if it's relevant. Okay, researcher from other fields should be able to understand your application just as well as someone who are familiar with your research, because of course when we are talking about technical proposal, for example from Kulliyyah or medicine, in terms of the content sometimes ataupun the field of area, sometimes we do not have the knowledge, but in terms of the process of flow of the research, usually we can understand. So that's why basically getting comments from researcher from other kuliah is also very important. Have a strong partner, help to enrich the research, giving the funder the confidence that you know how to take a high quality and scientific research. That's why I say, I mention again, have your team, mix your team. You have your senior, you have your junior. If, for example, there are this understanding, sometimes you felt that professor do not really do the works, you can have your associate professor to assist. Because young lecturer, usually I would say they are very diligent, rajin in preparing proposal. But sometimes issue is about experience. So professor, there are professor who are basically bukan kata malas lah. I mean, in terms of writing up, we have this difficulty on spending time writing up. But their comment is very important actually. Based on my experience, for example, I work with Prof Alias, I work with, for example, Prof Mansur, usually they do not prepare proposal. But their comment is very important, I would say, in giving the perspective of your proposal. Okay, giving a different perspective. Be sure to factor in the extra time review time among your co-researcher from the start. Okay, selecting your co-researcher is also very important. Sometimes try, for my team, usually I would want my co-researcher to do works. My team usually, Dr. Shafi'i will know, I will not select people who based on my experience, do not do works. do not do works. That's why my team usually is quite consistent. And if, for example, I know from other researchers outside who are, working, a new lecturer, a new person involved in my team, and basically they are quite good in contributing a lot. Contribution is very important actually. So I will basically have them as a team. Another one is actually the topic area itself. It's not to say that certain lecturer do not want to work with other people, but if, for example, within their team already have the expertise, usually they do not venture out for other topic. But if, for example, they are new topics, for example, now at the moment I'm looking for, we are looking for a new proposal, preparing proposal on tourism. So usually I will, based on my colleague, I will know lecturers who are good in tourism. But if, for example, their expertise is not detailed, so I will try to find out from other lecturers. So it's all depend on the topic itself. At the moment, for example, I think together with Dr. Shafi'i, I'm looking for a lecturer who can do cost-benefit analysis. I got 3 private funder who are basically want to appoint, because certain direct funder, they are very specific. And like I already mentioned, if they already know you, they will come back to you again. So they're macam a project by project, And at the moment, for example, I'm looking for a lecturer who can do together with me analysis of cost-benefit analysis. At the moment, I got 3, for example, 3 contract research submission of proposal on cost-benefit analysis. I think that will be on economic. So certain topic can require expertise maybe outside your team. So this is also very important. Okay, if your mentor co-researcher usually take a week to get back to you, make sure you give them a few weeks. That is also my problem, because sometimes when my team will give me a proposal, I will ask them to remind me when the deadline. 2 days before the deadline, they have to call me saying that I need your comment. So usually sometimes this is also, importance lah. If for example you have senior lecturer, okay, because if you are familiar with them, usually you submit, okay, Prof, I would want you to get your comment within 1 week. If within lagi another 2 days, you just call them to remind them, basically, okay, hopefully you can give comments. If not, sometimes if your proposal is quite detailed, you can just sit down with them. Prof, from my team, usually sometimes I will prepare a slide. Okay, Prof, these are the things that we prepare. At the moment, for example, I also work with Prof Nolida. Prof Nolida is quite detailed in terms of proposal. So usually I will give her a proposal, and then I will call a meeting. My RA will prepare the slide. I will say to her, okay, these are the things that we're going to, the objective and what are the output. And she will comment, basically. Because of course, it's all depend how basically you work together with your colleague. Okay, okay, back and forth. Try to get professionals or someone from the industry. These are important lah. Okay, if the funder do not think you can do the work or aren't qualified to do the work, then they would not give the fund. So based on my experience, I think most of us do degrees, kita dah ada our degree, master, PhD, you have colleague outside, professional, practitioner, you just include their names in the proposal. But of course, you need to inform them. For example, I got a lot of colleagues outside. I will inform them, basically. Some of them are really interested in research. But of course, in presenting to the funder, usually we'll have to inform our colleague outside, to bring them together, because just to give this impression that we are professional, we know the industry, and then our team also have people from the industry. Okay, don't give up. Okay, upon applying, don't give up, never stop applying. This is very important. Persistence is the key in grant writing. Okay, the grant review process take an average 6 to 8 months. It depends actually. Sometimes it be shorter. Private research grant usually shorter. Okay, usually they will take like 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes they already have the selection. Time taken, panel review, not recommended, approval and release of fund. Okay, do not stop and wait for result from one funding source, of course, because if this is a very important. Kalau if you are working alone, so sometimes you feel very exhausted. You try submit, and then there is no success rate, for example. So that's why you can have a team. Sometimes for usually I will ask my team, okay, just search in the internet. Nanti next week we come back kalau ada grant. If for example at the moment my team dah already have a few grant, I will say to them, okay, stop, no need dah, because too many grant pun kadang-kadang we cannot concentrate. Even though we know, when we look at the topic, we felt that okay, we have the expertise in submitting that particular topic and we can contribute. But of course, if your hand is already full, just stop and then just complete the grant that you have. Be sure to consider or comment by panel. So this is very important, with an open mind. Okay, so sometimes, for example, you can have even proposal from FRGS. If you fail to get your the FRGS, you can also try in private. But of course, like I already mentioned, private grant, they're very specific. Okay, of course, comment can strengthen your concept. continuous writing grant request to multiple sources. Okay, so you have to be very efficient in using your time. Okay, rejection is simply a process, making it important to develop a thick skin. Okay, from I mean, these are normal because as I already mentioned, success rate is only 30%. So rejection is normal, but don't use proposal that is being rejected. Okay, you submit again without any correction, because when I evaluate even internal grant, FRGS, sometimes kita dah tengok dah, alamak, proposal sama, topik sama, no correction. So outright, sometimes we just rejected the proposal because we already know. If, for example, submitted dekat FRGS, if, for example, you do certain correction, then there will be improvement. But if there is no correction, so there is no improvement at all. So this is very important. Getting practice with dealing with no and understanding that it is not personal. That is also very important. Okay, these are some source of funding that I've looked through. For example, Islamic Advisory Group. These are, I think, last year IIUM we call for proposal, and then researchers submit to RMC. We do the first layer of selecting. During that selecting, even we know that certain proposal was like, for example, is not fulfilling the criteria by the funder. But if that is the case, usually we will outright reject. And then, for example, Islamic Advisory Group, I think next year there will be call for proposal. Islamic Advisory Group, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we submitted 20, and then 5 or 6 researchers were successful. And mostly, for example, Islamic Advisory Group, they do not want data collection. They just want, kebanyakannya systematic literature review, but they want it to be related to hadis dengan Quran. So your team kena ada, for example, if you're applying for Islamic Advisory Group, your team kena ada from people from IIUM. It is a must. Because Islamic Advisory Group, mostly they do study related to medical vaccination, and mostly on vaccination lah, where in third world country, a lot of public do not really want to take vaccination because they believe that it is against the religion, especially they kata against Islam lah. So this Islamic Advisory Group, mostly dia punya grant is to awareness campaign sebenarnya for public in third world country to take, for example, vaccination. You know, for example, last time I think yang dapat the 5 is on breast cancer, talking about vaccination, polio. So these are they're very specific. Also, for example, yang one grant from economy yang dapat is talking about zakat and wakaf funding to grant to fund, for example, vaccination. So be targeted. There are also, for example, Barakat supporting and promoting study and preservation of Islamic art, heritage, architecture and culture, for example. They are from UK. Okay. In itself, Sumitomo, I think last time we have Dr. Irina got Sumitomo grant. Sumitomo is from Japan. Okay, Sumitomo. So it's grant. They are also, for example, smart economic grant. Okay, UN Habitat. I've got like 4 grants from UN Habitat. UN Habitat, to get it is difficult. Upon you get it, they will know, they will acknowledge your expertise, and inshallah you can get more. But the process of dia punya approval stages by stages of the technical report, progress report, final report, very tedious. You will have meeting every, for example, 2 weeks with UN Habitat officer, and then they will want you to prove or because they need to validate the progress. So it is a very tedious work. UNDP, we have United Nations Development Program. I think Dr. Shafi'i last time got UNDP project. UNDP project also one thing difficult, but the process of approving progress pun difficult juga. But at the moment we have, I think representative UNDP in Malaysia, they have office in Cyberjaya, is actually former lecturer from UIA, Dr. Haniza, is actually the coordinator for UN Habitat. Sorry, not UN Habitat, UNDP. UNDP usually starts topic on economy, on poverty, on urban environment, but their grant usually ataupun their contract research is very short term. They would want the research to be complete within 2 to 3 months. So these are some of the things. You can have other, for example, I include, for example, Nottingham Education, they have this document where you can get grants. For example, I give some of the sources. In terms of national grant, you have Yayasan Hazanah. Now Yayasan Hazanah dia dah buka latest one, okay? So inovasi. So these are some of the example. Talking about, for example, in preparing your, if you are shortlisted, in preparing your presentation. If, for example, you are shortlisted, I already mentioned, it's actually 50% of success rate already. But you need to prepare. Sometimes we prepare or the presentation in terms of slide, where you need to be very concise, very specific, target to what they would want, because they already have the term of reference. So be targeted, follow the, for example, the time given. For example, they would want 20 minutes. So you already know your one slide can go up to like 5 minutes. So you need to have, for example, one slide maybe 1 or 2 minutes. So you have to have concise slide depending on the time given. Bring your members. It's also depending on how many members that they would want. Okay. If, for example, talking about if that will be on the evaluation. If, for example, you have you are successful in getting grant, there will be another stage where you have to perform. I already mentioned ERGS, FRGS lah. Getting grant is difficult, completing there sometimes because there is no level of evaluation, there is no panel to evaluate, so it's much more easier sebenarnya. Tapi contract research, sponsored research, usually if they identify the stages of submission, for example, you have to have inception report ataupun progress report, usually lah, they will have panel of evaluator macam InSpan. InSpan, personally, I serik. I mean, getting the grant is one thing, but completing the grant, because I think the panel itself, themselves are depend dengan panel lah, rezeki. Everything is depend on rezeki. The panel sometimes are very helpful, give constructive comment, but they are panel who are just pain in the ass sometimes, So it's all depending on rezeki. I think even, for example, in Spain, we have I think in KAED last time, where the lecturer surrender back the grant because of this difficulty of fulfilling what is being commented by the panel. So I think for my talk, that's all. Do you have any question?
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Mariana.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
I'm Prof Rafiqul from Kulliyyah of Economy.
Yeah, Prof Rafiqul.
Okay, thank you very much for your very, very useful and informative talk. I have 2-3 questions, but you don't have to be too comprehensive in answer. First question is that I have one IAG grant this year, Alhamdulillah, with all your support. Now, next year, inshallah, we are going to finish. But as you just mentioned, that there will be another call for proposals by IAG. My question is, if we don't complete or about to complete, money is not submitted now, can we apply again for IAG? Yes or no? If yes, then we can try.
At the moment, okay, IAG did not mention anything about macam penalty to a researcher who do not complete. But personally, I would say that because one thing, under IAG we have MOU and MOA. And then they will specify on the completion. Because one thing we have to understand, when contract research is there will be legal implication if, for example, they give fund and we do not complete. So the risk, because one thing, the signing of the MOA is within the university. So I would say to Dr. Prof. Rafiqul, try to complete. Actually, I would say IAG grant. When I look at the TOR, even during our meeting with IAG, it is not that difficult because it's only literature review they want. But of course, I do understand they want the Islamic element. Component, the hadith and the Quran, it needs to be based on, for example, Sahih, and then that is one of the thing. And then the material, for example, for IAG, they want it to be distributed to public, so it needs to be very light reading actually. So I would say that will be one of the things.
Another thing you mentioned in your slide, I am reading from your slide, do not stop and wait for results from one funding source. Does it mean that I can apply the same proposal to another agency?
It's all depend. I think if it is not being awarded, then of course the ownership, unless the ownership is ours, unless they already mentioned. For example, in journal, they already mentioned that this, we have this declaration saying that this article is not being submitted and elsewhere, for example. If, for example, there is no requirement, then in my opinion, you can submit to other. But if, for example, you have already secured, so you should not submit to other.
Of course.
For example, you can also revise the topic, revise the content, or even, for example, only selection of objective. You can revise. I would advise that certain things need to be revised, because sometimes, if, for example, if you are submitting concurrent, there are possibility to get both. Then later you will have a big problem in, for example, which one, for example, because if, for example, you got one and then saying that you get both, then you have to actually withdraw or asking the funder to their consent to revise the proposal, especially the objective and also the output.
Another two short questions that you quite emphasized about the composition of the team and the team members. My question is, and my experience, if you have too many members, also some of them do not really work much. So what is your suggestion regarding the maximum number of team members, if there is anything like that?
It's also I would say actually 3 or 4 would be the best.
3 or 4.
3 or 4. But try to get, if the topic is try to get different expertise, because when I'm submitting, I will identify, for example, my name as what topic or what scope I'm going to cover. I will put, for example, Dr. Izawati, that will be, for example, on landscaping practices, for example. So even though they did not require you to specify the expertise of each of your co-researcher, but you can include that to show that you are covering a different element within that particular research.
Good. Another, my final question is that, in FRGS or similar to that, we the researcher do not have any honorarium in Musti grant or education Mohe grant. But some sponsored research, they have some certain honorarium.
True.
Now, if it is not, if it is mentioned, of course we can put honorarium, but if it is not mentioned specifically, so what should we do? Should we put honorarium or no?
I would say if it's a grant, okay, grant, katalah you are applying for foundation, do not include your name as part of the honorarium.
Oh,
But if it a sponsored research, you can include it as part of honorarium. And sometimes you can also include in the vote of 29, for example, enumerator, you know, you can include in that particular part. But I would say private or sponsored by a private funder, you can include honorarium. But for yayasan, do not include any honorarium to the researcher, because these are also some, you know, what we can say, the perception by the funder.
okay.
It can influence when you put your name and, or I mean, you submitting as researcher and then you put your name to as part of honorarium. So it can influence the decision actually.
In United Nations you have. So did you put any honorarium, or I'm just private question?
UN Habitat last time for my grant, it is actually they actually paid per hour monthly. So actually is actually they paid as part, is actually similar to consultancy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they paid to the research. I mean, the amounts, one is on data collection last time, and also, for example, I have to do charade, they have to do FGD, everything they covered that one. Even printing, everything they cover. But for researcher, in that in UNDP, there is no allowances on research officer or research assistant, only to the main researcher, which is me. So it's considered as honorarium. UN Habitat usually they pay honorarium.
Okay.
UNDP also pay honorarium.
Okay.
So,
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Mariana. Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any question? I think Dr. Shafi'i, you can I mean you can say something with regard to our our work in preparing our proposal and also in completing our research. Shafi'i, anything? Tak dengar.
Assalamualaikum, Doctor. May I ask question?
Yes.
Okay, I am Putri Azlian from Kulliyyah of Education.
Okay.
So let's say in the team, we have 3 professors and 2 young lecturers. But it turned out that the professors selected the young lecturer to become the principal, to become the PI. Okay, is that can be done in that way?
Yes. I mean, depending one thing, depending on how basically you submit your proposal. If, for example, you already identified the assistant professor to be the lead consultant, the lead researcher, so they should be given the opportunity to lead the researcher.
Okay.
Of course, within your team, you have to have this understanding. You know, usually for my team, if for example, if I prepare the proposal, I will be the lead consultant. If Dr. Shafi'i prepare, so Dr. Shafi'i will be the lead consultant. But if there are also, for example, if I already have a lot, so usually sometimes I'll give. At the moment, we have a few that I said to Dr. Shafi'i and Dr. Su, for example, okay, these are project that you can lead. So is another one is all depend on registration, because registration to RMC, appointment to the by the private funder, for example, you can ask, macam my private funder usually companies, so usually I will inform that I would want it they already know, for example, my team, so I would want for example Dr. Shafi'i to lead, so they will provide a letter, and then for the purpose of registration, when you are registered, for example, you can have that, the form from RMC. Because at the moment, this topic mostly on contract dengan sponsored research. So you identify, usually sometimes in your award letter, there is no co-researcher, only your name. So in that particular form, you include all your co-researcher. Even if you want to assist your colleague, other colleague, you can also, include their names in the application form. But the thing is, the detail, the funder, the budget allocation. But private funding, usually budget allocation is not being controlled by RMC. For example, macam FRGS kan ada detail, amount, paid, everything. But for private research, everything, for example, need to be decided by actually the researcher ourselves. Kita yang boleh control all the budget. Dr. Shafiee, anything?
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Mariana. I think since you mentioned my name, I have to give some view as well as your core team. I think I've been to in the team for past. I think after PhD 10 years ago, I think the same project so many times. And I believe that we are talking about the topic today is persuasive presentation for research ataupun grant proposal. I think it's very important during early stage because a core team will support the lead consultant or lead researcher, but at the same time we need to include another researcher or expert from outside. But from my experience doing many projects together, especially with ministries, government department, this is a sponsored research that require consistent, commitment. So some of the project it take 2 or 3 years even. So some of our researchers or even consultants from internal, especially lecturers, after certain period they have momentum for the work. The same work for 2 or 3 years they cannot sustain. So they give up. So sometimes they not give their full commitment. That's why I think our biggest worry. I think we have to select the right people who can give a commitment from start until end of the project. So how many people can do that for 2 or 3 years, working with the same people and with the same organization? Because some of the organization will make sure call you like any other consultant. So meaning that they will expect even you are lecturers, but they expect you to operate like a private organization because you compete for the same job. So if the other organization, private organization can apply for the same project and university also apply for the same job, so they expect the same level of work and also quality of work. So that's why this is very important, and I believe that that's one of the reasons that we need to think like an organization, a company, not like a university set up for the research. That's my comment lah, I think.
Yeah, true. I definitely concur with what Dr. Shafiee is saying, because when you are getting private grant, their punya expectation is totally different. Like they expect you like a consultant. They expect you to do the works, complete it in quality, and if, for example, they call for meeting, they expect you to come for that particular meeting. So like what Dr. Shafiee was saying, the commitment is very important. For example, for my, I think for my work, sometimes I have to postpone class. And then if, for example, they call for meetings, the sponsored, so I have to postpone class and I will basically replace it at night. These are certain things. Yeah, and then if we perform, usually they will come back. I think these are based on my experience and having repetitive sponsored research by the same organization. So if you are performing, usually they will come back. So that is one of the things. Do we have any other question?
Hi, Assalamualaikum, Dr. Mariana.
Waalaikumsalam.
In your experience, how many of these research that you've done for the contract research that they've allowed some kind of publication with your name on it?
Okay.
Or they have not totally? Yeah, thank you.
Betul. Kalau private research is all depend. Usually my private research, contract research, there will be some MOA sign. They will have this term of reference. Some of it will have NDA, so automatically it cannot be published. So it's all depend on the funder. If, for example, for example, now at the moment I'm working with a sponsored research on ECRL. There is a NDA sign with MRL on all the works or costing everything. So basically, I think among my team we already know. For example, there are certain works that cannot be used. So we and then we will not publish or do any papers. And then of course, talking about private research, or usually their funders sometimes do not want requirement for publication. It's all up to us lah. If, for example, we would want to do publication, but in terms of dia punya output, usually dia punya TOR, mostly dia tak ada requirement of publication. Tapi it's all depend, for publication is our KPI. I have, for example, if, for example, you are doing on, for example, my work now is on ECRL. We can publish if, for example, it's on literature talking about processes, issue problems. That one is okay. But if, for example, specific topic on, for example, construction cost, on income generated, for example, at the moment we are doing that. So that one is NDA. So automatically there won't be any publication on it.
It depends on that confidentiality.
Yeah. Dr. Su is here. So Dr. Su also one of my team. Is all depend on the you punya funder sebenarnya. Okay. Any other question? I think I have here Dr. Faizul from INHAD. Dr. Faizul is also quite active in, I think, getting a grant at the moment. Dr. Faizul is also working kan dengan KPKT on a conference. Dr. Faizul?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah. How's the your work with KPKT on the conference?
Okay, due to the changes of the ministry, the conference will go as planned next year, and the agreement with us with the seed funds also remain the same. Only now we will also work with the new ministry where the Dato Zuraida is the minister now.
Oh, okay.
Two ministries.
Okay. You move them. Oh, it's not under KPKT anymore.
No. It will involve both ministry.
Okay. I think Dr. Faizul is also active in finding, sponsored research, I think grants as well. I think we can share other experience for other lecturers, in getting private fund. Dr. Faizul is here. Dr. Faizul from KAED. Dr. Faizul, maybe you can also share your experience, I think, because I think sometimes it all depend on the expertise or our specialization, I think. In getting grant and also sponsored research. But one thing I would say, try to connect with your colleague from outside, practitioner. They will basically can propose or even can approach, okay, you to include as part of, for example, the sub-consultant lah. Dr. Faizul, anything?
Okay, I have little experience because compared to Prof. Mariana, I'm considered like at the teenage age in KAED. So I follow the successful step from Prof. Mariana as well. So I'm a head of research of KAED. Alhamdulillah, Prof Mariana achieve very excellent in research, achievement, and contribute a lot to KAED. So what can I say that we have to know that in order to apply grants, we have to ensure that our proposal can achieve the novelty level. And so novelty level meaning that that's novelty product we're going to produce from research can be copyright, patent, or commercialized later. Right? The idea from Prof Mariana is considered novelty. That's why she can market her idea to the private agencies and also public agencies. So we have to protect the ideas. And so what actually shared by Prof Mariana is through her experience since joining Kulliyyah of Architecture, and I'm also learning from her. And Alhamdulillah. And so Prof Mariana also was a INC director before. Sorry, IEC. Correct. You still IEC director. Correct. And so. So if you secure any research works, you have two ways to register. First is through IEC as a consultancy research works that contributes a certain amount of income to the PI and also income to university. The other way is registered the research work through RMC. That is called sponsored research. But that one, we have to follow the process involved. I think Prof Mariana knows better about this. Yeah. So, okay.
I think in what Dr. Fairul is saying is true. At the moment, I'm also the director for IEC, Consultancy, IIUM Consultancy and Entrepreneurship. If, for example, you already have a lot of sponsored research, contract research, this is actually quite similar dengan consultancy. They are basically lecturer who approach RMC, for example, they have consultancy, to register under contract research. Usually what happens, we will look at in detail their punya appointment. If it's relevant, it can be, can be identified as contract research, then kita akan register under contract atau sponsored research. One thing, if for example, as lecturer, for our purpose of promotion, okay, you have to, kalau kat KAED, usually we have to fulfill semua. You have to have consultancy, you have to have research. So if, for example, you already have consultancy, then you can change certain of your, for example, you can ask your colleague, the funder to change, if, for example, consultancy to be a contract research. But of course, you can also approach RMC, talking about whether to see your award letter to be a contract research or consultancy. The amount in terms of management fee would be different lah. At the moment, my work, throughout the working in the university for more than 20 years, I've never consider macam moonlighting lah. I tak pernah tak register either consultancy atau contract research. I think one thing is important. We as lecturer actually already have our salary. So if, for example, you are getting consultancy, you are getting contract research, it's just, if, for example, there is honorarium, it's just additional income. So I think what is important is to get the barakah of the work itself. So yeah, because we are allowed to do consultancy, we are allowed to do contract research. So we should register our work so that kita tahu. The requirement is that upon kita register, my understanding is that upon we register either consultancy or research, it is actually approved by the university. Okay, when we approve, insyaAllah rezeki tu halal lah, is being approved. So that is very important. Because I've seen a lot of lecturers during GIU, dekat IEC, a lot of them do not register. They will register upon they would want to submit for promotion. So usually macam years dah lepas, 2018, 2017, then baru nak register just because of you did not fulfill the requirement. So I think I would want to advise everybody that just register. do not think about the 2% or the 5% or even 11%. It's just, it's just to get the barakah of the works. I think that is very important. It's just an additional sometimes income to us. Another one, for example, getting or covering or sponsored. Our research assistant is also another way of getting our barakah lah of our work sebenarnya. Try to at the moment, for example, have more than 10, I think 10 research officer, research assistant, more than 10, 12. And mostly the funding I will allocate, even though it is a private research, which have actually my consultancy fee or my honorarium, I will allocate to my researcher, because I think these are very important as well, because our rezeki is to be shared. Inshallah, there will be other means. Allah will give us other ways lah, in getting more grant. I think more funding. That is also quite important. Getting RA is also important.
From Mariana, okay, I can add up with your points. I agree with you. There's an important point is to get barakah. Secondly, I always tell my researchers in KAED to register their works with RMC. The reason is that because you are using your working time in IIUM.
Betul.
Okay?
Betul.
So if you doing research during working time, consider like bribes lah, correct? Yeah. Secondly, if you doing your research that not registered with your RMC, not acknowledged to your head of department, to your dean, if anything happen, accident or anything problem outside during the working time, I think university will not cover. So source will not cover. MSD has said this before. So betul. That's very important to register.
Yeah. Even for example, when you go for meetings, for example, presenting, everything apply. You punya online lah, time off, for example, that is also very important, just to get to inform your deans or your head of department that you are going for data collection, research and everything. Okay. Do you have any other question? Dekat 2 jam kan. I think at the moment I'm looking for lecturer who can do cost benefit analysis at the moment. So kalau siapa yang boleh buat, then contact me lah, because we are having like 3 external funder approaching me. We have this section on cost benefit, so itu yang kita orang punya isu.
Yeah, Dr. Mariana, cost benefit analysis we can do in our Kulliyyah of Economy. You can contact us, inshallah.
Okay.
We'll help you.
Because at the moment, I think I got the input-output analysis last time from Dr. Gary. He proposed me one of his PhD student who is very good at the moment. I'm working with him on input-output analysis on one of the projects. Because we pay, we pay as honorarium to him in doing that analysis at the moment, cost benefit. It's just like, because of course I know that in economy there will be lecturer who can do, but I do not know who can do. These are one of the things like.
Mariana, sorry, we have that staff with the expertise in our Kulliyyah Department of Quantity Surveying.
Apa?
That's me, life cycle cost.
Okay. Life cycle cost, actually we have inshallah next year we are targeting one project. So on life cycle costing,
and also
that one.
Dr. Saiful Nizam on value management, costing plus benefit, performance functions. Dr. Saiful Nizam.
Ya ke? Okay.
Yeah, his PhD on value management.
Okay. Because I need that particular calculation nanti later on. Tak apa, nanti kalau macam tu nanti later on I approach.
Alright.
Okay. Any other questions? Izzah, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. So I believe we have a very fruitful input from Prof. Thank you very much. And what I can conclude from this session is that to come up with a very good proposal, we need to show to the assessor that we have a good teammate, because a good teammate is very important, because we are going to work together for quite a long time, and then at the same time it will show the expertise that we have in our team, and then and as for us, we need to ensure that our teammate is highly committed to the team and to our research work. And then the next that I can conclude is that to get a higher successful rate, it is better for us to work in a team from various background of expertise. So tadi, for those yang interested with life cycle cost benefit, you can contact Dr. Mariana. Kena berlawan lah ni, ramai expertise. And then and then we should dare ourselves to expand our research expertise. Maknanya we need to try other types of research that orang kata in current punya trend. Betul tak Prof?
Yeah, I think betul. Tapi try to get sebenarnya you punya colleague dekat luar. You punya CV, you can approach them basically talking about you punya topic, you punya experience, you punya PhD expertise. I think kalau engineering dekat luar banyak sebenarnya, kalau talking about civil engineering banyak sebenarnya grant atau consultancy, they are looking for people, especially on certain topic lah. Macam life cycle costing pun betul, memang ada dekat luar yang memang looking for people who can do that particular part. Not doing the research tu tau, tapi doing macam BIM for example kan. Now at the moment there is one consultant who are looking for people who can do that particular beam, so these are certain things lah.
That is based on the current trend lah kan, and demands.
Yeah.
And then last but not least is never give up. So before we end our session, just to remind everybody that we have our attendance link at the chat box, and then inshallah we will upload the what we call the videos and the attachment that shared by Prof. Mariana in CPD website, so that you can refer to it at any time. And then thanks again to Prof and your team, supporting team lah yang attended this morning session. Thank you very much. And to all my colleagues, inshallah we will have other sessions to share with you associated to this kind of research and preparing a proposal. So inshallah we will end our session today with Surah Al-As and Tasbih Kafarah. I will share the attendance link again, inshallah. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Assalamualaikum.